maker at Chumley?
It's in the trash can.
Why did you throw away the old coffee maker? It worked.
Not after I broke it.
I think I know what happened to the vase. Chum messing around with that sword.
Seriously? You know what I want you to do? I want you to email this to every employee in the company, explaining this is not how you work in the warehouse.
Here, a seller brings World War I knives to the pawn shop, eager to make a deal. He even offers a demonstration, but Rick quickly declines. I can't blame him. I wouldn't want anyone to wave several knives in my face too. Anyway, Rick challenges the seller's claim, insisting that the knives are from World War II. But are they?
It's pre-World War II because it's pretty common to find knuckle guards on weapons like this. You have to understand, they jump in that trench, there was no rifle going, it was punch, stab, punch, stab. And that's just the way they fought. This knife predates World War II.
Rick goes further to give the seller insight into the item. However, he's not sure of its authenticity or maker. On the other hand, Jeff does not want to pawn these, but sell them.
Okay, I'd really like to get these knives, but just like in any other business, make an uninformed decision, you're gonna lose money.
So how do you authenticate these things?
I have a friend. He's an expert in military knives. I'd like to set up an appointment with you. You can come back. He'll take a look at them. He'll tell us what they're worth. Maybe we can make a deal.
Sounds good.
All right.
That's if Rick concludes. Now that the expert is here, hopefully he can help determine whether it's a fake or not. He analyzes them, and Jeff and Rick are on the edge of their seats, eager to hear what he has to say.
On a French manufacturer, and any infantryman would be issued this knife if he were going into theater where they were fighting in the trenches. And if you can imagine being punched in the face with one of these, it would disable you, and that was the intent.
So am I. The expert validates Jeff's claims about the knives' dates. The other knife was the first military knife assigned during the war. Now Rick remembers it all.
Coats.
The term trench coat comes from World War I because it was trench warfare. They were thick wool jackets. Not only would wool jackets keep you warm when it was wet, it was also extremely difficult to pierce with a normal knife.
Let's move on to the final evaluation. But wait, there's a twist. What could it be? A price tag of $170 for one knife. The suspense builds as we wonder about the value of the other knife. Jeff is not taking this lightly, and the negotiation is about to get intense.
I can't see that having varnish on it brings it down, and that really disappoints me because I thought it was worth a lot more money, being they're 90 years old.
The American cutlery knife, it's in really nice shape. It's probably a $225 to $250 knife.
That's so sad. But what is the seller's next action? How well will both men bargain on these knives? Find out.
I'd like to see $350.
Dean said these were worth $475, and basically what I can do is $250.
Too low. Can you go $350?
Best I can do is $250.
Nah, I can't do that. Can you $300? Can you at least give me $300 for him?
$251?
No, what? Forget it.
It's just a matter of economics.
No, I understand.
A seller comes to the pawn shop with an espresso machine. Chum is too lazy to lend a hand in bringing it inside the shop. It is a Mega One espresso machine, and Robert just wants to get rid of this item. Let's see if he can help out with the details.
I mean, practically brand new, commercial grade. It's top of the line, puts out about 240 cups an hour. Also, I have this grinder, commercial grade grinder.
Why don't you come around here and show me how the thing works?
Okay.
I don't know much about coffee makers at all.
Okay, Corey couldn't help but make a silly joke. Hope Chum doesn't take it too seriously.
I already make coffee every morning. With this thing, I can make it in no time.
What are you looking to do with it, man? Pawn it or sell it?
I'm looking to sell it.
And how much are you trying to get?
4,500.
The only way you're gonna get 45 out of this thing is if this thing prints money, man.
Why is Chum ready to jump on Corey's offer to open a coffee shop? I'm not so sure about that, but let's get back to business. Let's see if Robert can successfully sell this item.
How about 15 with the grinder?
I can jump it up to 1,400, but that's really gonna be the best I can do.
It's too big to use in my house, so I guess I'll have to take it.
All right, buddy. Let's go do some paperwork.
All right.
You wouldn't believe what this seller brings to the pawn shop. A diamond tiara that belonged to Ida McKinley. This will surely get Rick on his toes. How is it possible that Chum doesn't know who this lady is? That's weird, but what do you expect? Rick goes in to enlighten Chum.
She was President McKinley's wife. There were stories about how he treated his wife better than any other person in Washington. If you said anything bad about his wife, you were immediately fired. I mean, there was just no two ways about it.
Let's dive right into it. Rick knows so much about this lad that he could literally go on and on with the stories. Rick is really interested in this item.
Really interested in this piece. Basically, what we have a tiara that these things bolt onto.
Right, correct.
Okay, but also on the back you have these little clips like this, so there could be a brooch also.
Exactly.
What does Kelvin plan to do with the diamond tiara, a family heirloom with potentially significant value? The anticipation mounts as Rick suggests having an expert examine it, a move that could reveal its true worth.
Putting Greg up, he deals in just really elaborate vintage jewelry. He will look at it, and we will try and figure something out.
Cool. Rick is so fixated on this item, but it's best he hears what the professional has to say. There is so much attached to this. Most importantly, what is his opinion on the diamonds?
The diamonds are fine quality for the period. They're what you would expect to see. The idea that this was convertible and has the fittings for both the brooch and also the tiara, and I think that's kind of neat. So the question becomes, what do we know about the provenance? How can we...
Are they authentic? And do they have any value? It looks like the appraisal is going in Kevin's favor, but what is Rick willing to offer him? How will it turn out? I am curious to find out.
It's history.
So what are you thinking?
I'll give you 35 grand.
It's a lot of money. After hearing what he has to say, I think we've got to get more. You know, if it does retail for 75.
You're not going to be able to retail it. I mean, what's your bottom dollar?
In this scene, a man pops up with a signet ring owned by a mafia boss. You wouldn't believe that Lucky Luciano owned it. One could even get killed if found in possession of this item. Shouldn't Rick be worried? What else does David have to say about this?
I decided to come to the pawn shop today to sell my ring that belonged to Lucky Luciano, one of the most notorious mafia dons that ever existed. It's a one-of-a-kind piece that has a lot of power and a lot of authority. They're going to want it not for its jewelry value, but because of its history.
So how did your mom get the ring?
I'm so curious to find out. It is safe to say it is a family heirloom that was owned by his mother. Luciano started his first gang in New York. Corey shares some information on this as well.
As crime CEO instead of just, you know, a thug. This guy started his first gang in New York when he was like a teenager, but basically he grew to be the head of the entire Italian mob in the U.S.
If you look at the picture, that's the face of a devil. The rubies are set as the eyes, but there's even the tear. I mean, Luciano was a mobster. He killed people.
Interesting. Rick is fascinated by this signet. He is confident it will attract collectors because people seem interested in mob legends. He wants someone to come over to authenticate it and find out if it truly belonged to Luciano.
I know the curator of it. This is the one guy that would actually know. So let me give him a call. I'll be right back.
Sounds good. If this person can show some way that this piece belonged to Lucky Luciano, I'd be the most fortunate person that ever was.
That's the best option. The expert is stunned, and he's so ready to write a biography of this mafia legend. He points out that Luciano's mob played an important role in the World War. Well, enough of the stories. Does it check out?
If this is Lucky Luciano's ring, you'd be looking at something that would be worth tens of thousands of dollars. Can you tell me a little bit about the history of this ring?
Well, my mother had gotten the ring given to her by a person of authority who was connected to the mob families.
Unfortunately, there are no documents to authenticate this item. The expert isn't familiar with this sort of stuff. I'm sure Rick doesn't deal with items that aren't genuine. Is there any way out? Watch and see.
Considering all the information we have, unfortunately, I just don't think we can conclude that this is Lucky Luciano's ring.
Okay. It's just a story.
It's a great story.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jonathan.
You have to have some kind of documentation to authenticate it. I mean, there's just no reason for us to think that this ring had any association to Lucky Luciano.
In this scene, a seller hopes to sell an item that he thinks is of good value. He approaches Rick and his dad in the pawn store with the keys to A.I. Capone's jail cell. The seller further illustrates the role each key played.
There were two outer doors that this would open up, and then you went into the cell with the big door.
And where did you get them?
I had worked with an officer who was retiring. Al Capone was housed in the Cook County Jail, and he was Al Capone's personal jail guard.
It's quite interesting. Richard goes in depth with some stories about the legendary A.I. Capone. People will definitely go crazy for items attached to him. What's the next phase? Yes, the price.
And how much did you want for them?
You know, I have like $1,500 in my mind.
They're really interesting. So you don't have any actual paperwork proving they're his keys?
No, I don't.
All right, but Rick is worried about the authenticity. How does he push through when nothing can be used to authenticate it? What will be the outcome? Stay tuned.
If we can't, we're like 15 bucks a piece, so.
Nah, it's not gonna happen.
When we sell stuff, we have to certify what it is. I agree with you. These are probably from himself.
Just when you thought the episode was winding down, a surprise awaits. Rick, Corey, and Chum venture outside the store, unaware of what they are about to encounter. The unexpected twist keeps the audience on their toes, eager to see what unfolds next.
I don't know what I'm walking into, but these people have some of the most unique and cool cars in all of Vegas.
I really like all these cars, Rick.
So I grabbed my car expert, James, and we're gonna go and check it out. Whoa. Now this is a car, 1928 Cadillac V8. This is what a car is.
What's this? A car owned by a famous gangster? Now that's a surprise. Rick is about to give us a history lesson, but Corey seems less than thrilled. The anticipation builds as we wait to find out the car's worth and Rick's thoughts on it.
Talking about Al Capone and everything, I need you to tell me about this
Hold on a
Shelby.
second, dude. I mean, appreciate it for a moment. We'll look at that in a minute. Just appreciate this car, okay? I mean, this is art.
Sometimes my dad gets distracted by the sound of his own voice. This is the way metal should be laid out on a car.
I mean, look at how big those tires are.
And you just kind of gotta wait it out.
That's like an inch thick glass. That's all they had for bulletproofing back then.
Next, a speakeasy movie and gun are up for sale. Rick wants to hear what Leo has to say about these items. I wonder why one of the items is called a speakeasy. There is no need to worry because Rick is about to do justice to it.
Alcohol was being sold all over Chicago by different organized crime gangs. This could be a really cool look into Prohibition-era Chicago.
So what's on the VHS? The VHS is actually just a copy of this 60mm movie.
That's what he is good at. Rick is curious about what is inside the tape and wants to play it to find out more. Moving on, let's see what he has to say about the gun.
Stopped making guns right around 1880, I think-ish. There is a pistol that he makes that is worth a lot of money, but that's basically just a curiosity because it was all brass. This is not that one, and it's in really bad shape. The other problem with your film?
I wasn't expecting bad news. Poor Leo. Is it a waste of time and effort? Probably.
It's interesting, but there's tons of stock footage like this already out there. Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm not even gonna make you an offer. You really don't have anything marketable here.
So you won't offer anything on it?
I was hoping there was something on the movie, but there's just not.
Oh boy, Rick is about to feast his eye on something that will take him off his seat. It is a John Dillinger shell casting. Rick is overwhelmed, so he quickly brings in Jonathan to check it out.
From Dillinger's last heist that went really, really bad.
It did go bad, for some. I'm the executive director at the Mob Museum, which is the National Museum of Organized Crime and Law Enforcement. We specialize in artifacts, history, and stories of organized crime in the United States.
Okay, the expert is willing to take Rick's place to tell us more stories about John Dillinger, and boy, he does have a lot to say. Someone who is an outlaw would have had crazy adventures attached to him.
Dillinger at the time, public enemy #1. And this guy was as big as they come in terms of outlaws and real, this is real life Hollywood stuff. I mean, this is a guy who was in jail, busted out of jail twice.
At this point, the expert is not willing to stop. I'm curious to find out why John was regarded as public enemy #1.
As public enemy #1. By some accounts, John Dillinger was a little bit of a Robin Hood type of figure. So Rick, what are your concerns about these cases?
Well, my concerns is we have 4 showcases in a baggie.
And so the assessment begins. He needs to evaluate the castings to determine whether they are real.
What we could do is we could take a look at the casings and the markings on the casings and see if we can gather any information that might give an indication of what time period they're from. Be able to get back to you with some more information about them.
Okay, well, is that all right with you? Sure. Okay, I gotta get to work.
Great.
Right, the expert meticulously assesses each casting to determine its authenticity. Why is he bent on telling us more stories?
The underside, you'll see this red primer sealant. The red primer sealant and the nickel plating would typically be from a more recent shell. The bottom line with this, the newspaper article, the markings on the casings, it's a wonderful story.
I wonder why. Don't tell me all this effort just went down the drain. The disappointment on the seller's face says it all. What's the next line of action?
There's nothing to be extracted off of those casings. You can't pull fingerprints or DNA. It's a wonderful story, but there's just no way to establish fact.
Yeah, the reason I wanted Jonathan to look at him is to figure out some way we could prove it.
Sure.
This is the hard thing in the world.
Rick and Corey step out to check out a White II fighter plane. Dennis, the seller, hopes to strike a fair deal to get a new house. Well, let's see if it works out for him. Let's hear more from the seller.
No, but it actually was a gunnery trainer. They actually had a gun mounted right here, and the pilots could actually fire the guns. So in World War II, this was the airplane the government used to train all our pilots. Tuskegee Airmen all flew this airplane down in Alabama, so it's a very famous airplane.
Okay, Rick is so curious to hear more, but Corey is only concerned about giving it for a test run. Well, today is Corey's lucky day, as he is permitted to check it out.
Trained would be in the back or the front?
The instructor would be in the back seat. It's fully dual controlled, so there's a throttle, stick, and all the flight instruments are also in the back of the airplane as well as the front.
So you could actually give me flight lessons in this thing, huh?
Cool! Corey is excited to have this. However, there is no way to make a decision without hearing the price. $185,000. That's massive.
$185,000.
I got a buddy who's a Navy fighter pilot. Do you mind if I have him come down and take a look at it?
You know, if you think he's qualified, I think that's good enough. Let's bring it on. I have no question about the caliber of this airplane. I'm ready for this.
What is their plan now? Bringing in an expert was a good decision. Let's pay attention to what he has to say. The plane was used for combat during the war. He moves on to address Rick's concerns.
That tail wheel right there makes it a little difficult.
So is it harder to land in a one with the tail wheel?
You got it. Landing a tail dragger, that airplane can swap ends pretty quickly. Where it doesn't have the tricycle gear, where you have a nose gear and 2 tail gear, you actually have it in the back.
Oh boy, what's the problem now? Aside from that, Rick is still tempted to have this. Before the expert gives a final evaluation, he checks everything thoroughly.
This has been completely overhauled.
The engine's on here, 1,600 hours, and as you get closer to that mark, you need to overhaul, and that is a big ticket item. So that's actually a plus. On the front, he's going to have a spinner. Not all Texans have a spinner. It adds about $5,000 in value.
So far, so good. It's looking promising. The expert wishes to have a test run by taking it up in the air. That is awesome.
What to do here is to take this airplane flying. Dennis and I should go airborne.
Yeah, let's take her up.
All right, let's do it.
Do your stuff.
I'm super excited to fly this aircraft. I spent most of my time in jets, and this will be really kind of a throwback. It'll be fun to fly.
Superb. Corey wishes he were the one flying it. Now that it has been ascertained that it works perfectly, let's get down to the pricing. The expert gives the current market price.
All right, so what do you think it's worth?
Right now, current market, what we're looking at, you know, I think it's fair value. It's about $170,000 on the spot.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair estimate.
So what does it cost to own one of these things?
First thing is you need to hangar it. That's about $300 a month. Then this aircraft needs to fly.
Finally. Meanwhile, Corey considers the maintenance. Well, it's up to these gentlemen to bargain on the price.
So what is your bottom dollar?
I'd look at something around $165,000.
Oh. You know, we sort of came out here on a whim. So on a whim, I'll give you 140 grand.
Yeah, it's getting warm.
I mean, if I buy it off, it's going to sit around for a while. It's going to cost me money to own it till I resell it or figure out what the hell I'm going to do with it.
A seller meets Rick and Corey at the store with a cabinet card. She hopes to sell it for a reasonable price. Interestingly, this card has been sitting in a box for 70 years. As they look at the card, Rick cracks a joke about the man on the card being a Benjamin Harrison lookalike. Anyway, let's delve into it.
You know your grandfather's middle name is Benjamin, and your great-grandfather's middle name was Benjamin. They were named after him, I believe.
Whatever.
You see any resemblance?
I do.
Hey, he's bald and he's got a gray beard.
All in all, a pretty good president.
Okay, Rick gives a quick analysis of this item, but he is not sure Benjamin Harrison signed this card. He is puzzled and uncertain.
Well, remember, they didn't print anything. Everything was written. I'll call somebody down here, but if it's not a signature, it's worth like $10. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Most cabinet cards aren't worth the paper they're printed on. So normally, this would be a pass. But a cabinet card actually signed by a president? Now that's a different story. And not just because, supposedly, I'm related to this guy. Benjamin Harrison.
Our 23rd president.
According to my grandma, he's a relative of mine.
They look identical, don't they?
However, he calls someone in to assess the card. Let's leave it to the pro to examine it. Here, take a look.
2 questions I have to answer first. Sometimes when these were printed up, the signature of the person was printed on at the same time. So I have to make sure that this is actually signed in ink. So I'm just gonna look through here. Yes, and it does appear to be signed in ink. It's not a printed-on signature. Now, the second question is it actually the signature of President Benjamin Harrison?
Everyone is on the edge, eager to know. He compares the signature with a copy of his. The stakes are high, as the seller counts on a favorable outcome.
I do believe this was signed by President Benjamin Harrison himself.
Oh, wow.
Okay, sweet.
Oh, wow, that's great.
So what do you think it's worth?
Well, there is one little condition with this. So if you see along here, there are all those extra lines. I don't think this is a first-generation photograph.
Fingers crossed. Oh boy, there might be a slight hitch. But will it turn out in favor of Rick or this lady? Will she get a decent price for it? Let's find out.
I have to frame it up. I have to do some other things.
Could you do $750?
I guess we really shouldn't have called Stewart in, huh?
Yeah, I'll give you the $750.
It's a deal. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, you want to write her up, son?
Come with me.
Josh brings in a Picasso Toros ceramic. He is a huge fan of Picasso. I hope his trip to the pawn store won't be in vain.
Doing well. How are you?
All right. What do we have here? Did your kid make this in school or something?
No. We have a Picasso Maduro ceramic from 1952 titled Toros. I'm here today to sell my Pablo Picasso Maduro ceramic plate.
We are not sure yet. Rick mentions that Picasso is the most well-known artist in the world. The seller put forward the price, but there is an issue. There is something off with this piece.
That's a really big problem right there. There's a little chip in it. I mean, it's a slight damage on it, but it's probably a big deal. I'm going to give a guy a call because I know a little. I know just enough to get myself in trouble if I buy this, okay?
Yikes. Luckily, Chad is here to do what he does best. What does he find intriguing about this item?
I guess sort of made by Picasso because he really didn't. He just sort of made these things.
Yeah, so this is Maduro. Picasso would have done the initial design on this, and then it would actually put a decal on it, but he's not the one that painted it.
Who knows? What about its authenticity? Rick is still bothered about the damage, but the expert assures him there is nothing to worry about.
It's got, see, like that's a firing. That's from the firing. That's not from a striking chip.
Okay, but on the front of it, it looks like there's a chip.
That's probably a firing chip. If it was a chip on the edge, you got a problem. For this, it's not a big problem. It's really almost to be expected in a lot of these.
Great, now they can confidently move on with the bargain. Watch and find out how it goes down.
I don't think I can make that work.
Well, thanks for coming in then.
Thanks for
I appreciate it. Change your mind, always come back.
Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
I wasn't able to make a deal, and I thought that's a bunch of bull. I'll just put the ceramic right back on the mantle, and I'll just keep it for a couple more years.
Moving further, a man walks in with a cocktail mixer. He doesn't know how to use it, and that's another reason he wants to sell it. A garage find? How surprising. What do Rick and his pa think?
Where did you get it?
At a garage sale.
Okay. It's probably from the 20s.
Okay.
We'll see a patent on it or a manufacturer. Do you know how the mixed drink came about?
No, not really.
Okay, it was because of Prohibition, because the alcohol was so nasty and disgusting that you basically had to mix it with something to get it down.
As usual, Rick delivers informative lectures. It's amazing that it was made in the Prohibition era and serves multiple purposes.
So you got the other glass?
No, and I don't think this is the original glass. I think it broke somewhere.
Yeah, there's definitely a market for Prohibition-era cocktail stuff. But this thing is more of a curiosity than a vintage collectible.
Well, if the seller says so. But is there a market for something like this? Let's see if Rick takes this item in.
You know, it's 90 years old. It really works well.
You know, things like this have a tendency to sit. It's going to be a tough sell. I mean, who exactly buys one of these things? You know, I'll give you $100 for the thing.
125?
75.
He's just mean and grumpy.
Here, we have a lady who approaches Corey and Chum with a tooth extraction. Now that's a first. It looks a bit scary. Meanwhile, Corey is curious about how she found something like this.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
I have an 1870 tooth extractor.
That looks freaky.
I'm a family doctor and I love medical history and collecting. At first it looks a little scary, but it's very similar to modern day instruments. I am hoping to sell my tooth extractor for no less than $150.
That's a good question. Dalia offers to demonstrate how it works. Corey hasn't seen one of these.
I can honestly say I've never seen one of these in a shop before. But as cool as it is, antique medical equipment can be a tough sell. So I hope she's flexible on the price. Any idea of what you're looking to get?
300.
It's cool. I don't know if it's $300 cool.
This is an old piece from the 1870s. It has the markings on it for verification.
What about Chum? The seller insists collectors would want an item like this. How does she know this? That's not her job. Take a look to see what happens next.
Well, if you ever need a job, let me know. I can go like 120.
How about 200?
About 175. I mean, there is a market out there. I got a feeling it'll sit around for a while.
180 and we got a deal.
All right, deal. Chum, you want to write her up?
Yep.